guys, it's me. I'm back.
What's up, party people?
We're like, Mads, come on. All right, this show is taking a turn for the.
All right, guys, welcome everybody. Hopefully you guys can see and hear me okay. If you guys can, please just go ahead and post in the chat that you can see and hear me. I know I am not Rick. I don't look like Rick. Hopefully I'm a little prettier than Rick, but you guys can be the judge of that. I am so happy for you guys to be here today. We have an amazing guest. We have, awesome, you guys are popping in, all clear. Thank you, sweet. You guys are rolling in. We have an awesome guest here today, Kyle Roth. He is a fisheries biologist. He is going to talk to us today about prey-based development. We're going to talk about management strategies, genetics, all fun things. So hang on tight for that. And it looks like you guys are rolling in. Let's see who we have here today. We got Matt Brown, New Fishing. Of course, we have Viper Vision, Man Stuff, Dad Stuff. Awesome. You guys are popping in. Perfect. Brent, we got you in here as well. Awesome. And I want to see who's new. So if you guys are new today and this is your first time watching, go ahead and pop in the chat as well. I want to see who is new, if we have any new people on. And we'll see what we got going on there. It looks like you guys are talking about some bait casters using braid or mono. Good conversation going on in the chat today. All right, while you guys are popping in there, as you guys know, if you watched the most recent episode, Rick is currently traveling. He is headed to Thailand, which is super exciting, and he's trusted me to run some of the podcasts. So very happy to be here with you guys. And as we are popping in and getting started, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you guys to Kyle. Let me add him to the stage here. All right, we'll make sure you're unmuted. Hey, Kyle, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. I'm doing good. Thank you. Thank you again so much for being with us here today. This is such an awesome community. So I'm very excited for you to meet the Monster Bass community and also just share your knowledge with us today. A lot of what I talked to Rick about is kind of bringing on more guests that might be in specialty areas, other fishermen, all of that good stuff. So I'm super excited to bring you on. Normally, you guys know that we do a segment where we share PBs. I haven't had any come through from the last time we did them. So we're going to skip over the PB section today and actually just dive right into the episode. So Kyle, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, what kind of got you into fisheries biology, and then just you as an angler as well.
All right. So I'm based out of Idaho. I grew up kind of around Boise in a small town called Middleton. As a kid, I grew up fishing my grandpa's pond, so that's kind of what me introduced in this fishery program. I love bass fishing, and as I grew up through high school, I got my buddies into it, and it kind of just sparked my interest. And when I graduated high school, I didn't know what I wanted to do, and my parents said, "Well, go do something you love." And I like hunting and fishing, so I went to school. I got my associates in wildlife management, a 2-year degree, just close to home, little town called Ontario, Oregon, TVCC. And then from there, after my associates, I still didn't know what I wanted to do. So my best buddy at the time, he was getting a fishery science degree up north at U of I in northern Idaho. So I followed him up there, and together we got our fishery science degree. And during my 2-year program, I joined crews with Oregon Fish and Wildlife, where I met two of the head biologists in Eastern Oregon. And throughout the past 6 years, we've done a bunch of warm water fishery management out there, along with some cold water fishery management. Kind of Owyhee Reservoir. Owyhee River is really known for the brown trout population. The reservoir has a good largemouth population as well. We've done a lot of trout management down in Nevada. The is hybrid management that we're studying, and then a little bit of bull trout management. After that, when I finished my degree, I've been picking up some seasonal positions here and there. I did a boat inspection position 2 summers ago. We were inspecting for invasive zebra mussels, trying to keep them out of our waterways. Just recently, they've gotten into the Snake River system down by Twin Falls. So they've done preventative measures to keep them out of there. And after that, my recent job this last year was working with steelhead and salmon across the whole state. We visited nearly every hatchery in Idaho where we clip fins, adipose fins, as well as pit tags. And that sums me up basically.
Very cool. And so for that day-to-day work, I know you talked a little bit about like clipping the adipose fins and things like that, but share with us a couple other projects, if you can, that you worked on. Like just kind of share with us some of those experiences and things that kind of helped shape your career and be like, yep, I really do enjoy this. And then share some things with us that might not be so enjoyable so everyone can kind of see what the pros and the cons of that kind of career are.
For sure. So we could start talking about my Oregon job. I really like that job. We did a bunch of work with largemouth bass and smallmouth bass, and occasionally we'd see some mean mouth. That's the hybrid between the largemouth and smallmouth. We see that in some of the water systems with low populations and similar spawning areas where they coexist. Um, Basically, how we surveyed the bass over in that Oregon systems, we would get on a big boat, it'd be a electroshockage boat, and we'd go out at night with these rods down in the water and they conduct electrical current.
Wow.
It's safe for the fish. It knocks them out for a few seconds. We scoop them up, put them in our buckets, and then from there, we'll identify the species, the length, and the weight. And depending on what job we're doing, we'll add a tag in the back with identification numbers, reward tags, stuff like that. Um, I really enjoyed that. That made me want to continue working warm water fisheries.
Yeah.
It's really fun working with the bass. You get a when you're shocking those up, you get to see big 8 pound. These are northern strains, so typically we don't see those double digits. Those 8 pound bass are like trophy bass for us. Um,
So you get
and
to see
then
them even though people aren't out there catching them all the time. You actually get to see them, tag them, feel them, and then let me ask you, what do you do with the tags for someone who might not be as familiar with the process of that? What is the purpose and what are those tags for?
so they go by a few names. Um, the easiest name is a Y tag because it's like a closed tag you see in closed when you pull a ticket off or something. It goes in their back just behind their dorsal fin and it sticks in there and it's about this long. They're We were using orange tags and so the study we were doing, it's a small population on a big lake. So we were seeing how um, tournaments how it distributed their population because it's a 65-mile long lake with a small population and there's only one good boat ramp by the dam. So these guys they'd go down the to the far end of the lake and they'd weigh in at the upper end of the lake. So we were trying to see if these fish when they were released, if they were going back to their caught area or if they were just settling in where forage and habitat was suitable.
And what did you guys find? Because I've always wondered that.
So this lake system, it's kind of different than most. It's like a canyon, a big gorge. It doesn't have many flats of vegetation, and we would see fish travel all the way back to where they were originally caught, running up to 60 miles. We weren't using GPS systems, so we don't know the time frame it took. We get a guesstimate of when that fish was caught by the next angler. Could be a few days from release, could be a month from release. So it just gives us a slight look into what's happening. But we'd see up to 40 to 50% fish stopping short from where they were caught just because the forage and the habitat was suitable. So they wouldn't find a reason to travel back. They'd be happy with stopping short. So from what we've been finding, closer to that release site, I've been gaining a larger population of bass.
Yeah, very cool. And someone asked here in the chat, are they RFID tags so you can scan them, or are they just marking tags?
Just marking tags. There's no scanning. You call into the office, you give the number on the tag, and then we take our data book, we log it back in. And the reward tags, it'll say $50 reward. Call in, send you a check in the mail. You get $50 for fishing. Pay for your gas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
can't complain with that for sure.
good bonus.
Awesome. And then someone said, what kind of information are you gathering, like growth rate and travel habits? Would those
Yeah.
be you're checking?
So big growth rates. Um, if we're looking for a certain size, we'll throw a pit tag in it. That's just a tag we can take an electric scanner over, and then it reads in that data. So a number, say like 10 digits long, and we'll have that in our charts when we tag that fish. So if we tag it, get that length, that weight, say we shock it back up. We do that program every 2 years. So we give them 2 years. So say we got a fish 2 years later, we scan it, it pops up. Then we can go back on that data and say, oh, it was 14 inches, it was almost 2 pounds, and now it's 16 inches and 2.5 pounds. That gives us our growth rate, because with the northern strain, they're pretty slow at growing. That's why we don't see those double digits. It's because their genetics. It's a slower growth rate with the harder winters. So you'll see more girth in these fish than length.
Okay, that's good to know. Awesome. So my second half of that question is, what are some things that you didn't enjoy so much about being out there? So we talked about the fun of it, getting to see those big fish, but what are some things possibly that maybe other people don't see that maybe weren't so exciting for you?
Yeah. So when you join this crew, you don't get to say what you want to do. If you're told to do something, you do it. I think the biggest thing that was tough on that job was we went down to McDermott, Nevada to study hybrids between red bands and cutthroats. They didn't want that. So when we went down there, they're just small creek bass, big long creeks, but they're only about sometimes this wide, sometimes they get this wide, and that creek system's covered in willows, thick willows. Problem with that is there's also giant spiders in there. And we're doing the same thing. We have to shock those fish up, so they basically compress that boat into a backpack. And we have wands. We always said we look like Ghostbusters because we got these big backpacks and our rods, and so we crawl up those creeks down there. It gets up to like 120 degrees. It is hot
Wow.
down there. So we work full days. We get at the time I wasn't getting paid overtime because it was a seasonal technician job. So if we were going overtime, we're just we're doing it. We don't get paid for it. We're doing it, and we're bushwhacking through the willows, getting trash in our face, getting whipped, getting these giant spiders on us. We never got bit, but no one likes a big spider on you.
Right.
It was my buddy got COVID at the time we were down there, and I had a piece of cartilage break off in my kneecap.
Oh, geez.
So I was gimped. My buddy he was just dying. He was puking, and
Yeah.
we had to hike 5 miles a day, and it needed to be done. So we got it done.
Yep. So you're saying you don't get to always do the fun stuff that's out there with the bass and that type of stuff. Sometimes you're in little creeks, small areas. It's hot, I would imagine, in the summer in general, especially Nevada.
Yep. It was 2 week trips at a time. Didn't have showers. We'd hop in the creek to clean, and we're no AC. Oh, it was hot down there.
Yeah, geez, it sounds like it. So let's talk a little bit about. I know we were talking about prey before this prey base, but let's talk into management strategies since we kind of touched a little bit on the different areas that you've worked. So when you evaluate a fishery, what are some signs that you look for to judge its health? Like, how can you tell something's a healthy fishery, that it would be something you want to fish versus something that might not be healthy? I know all of us, especially as anglers, will be driving down the road and we'll be like, I wonder if that's a good place to fish, right? Any body of water, we're immediately like, oh, I got my pole in the back. Is that worth fishing? So share with us what makes a good fishery.
Yeah. So I mostly work with public bodies of water in the state of Idaho. And for the most part, we're a dry desert condition unless you get up into the mountains or northern Idaho. So let's talk southwestern Idaho for a bit and southeastern Oregon. We're along the Snake River. There's a lot of stuff that goes into our fisheries around here. Our biggest thing is our waterways are mostly filled by snowpack and irrigation water. So if we have a bad water year, we will see drought and we will see big die-offs. So I think the bad thing is about every 4 to 7 years we get a drought year and we'll have lakes just dry up and we'll lose all fish, basically. Well, what will happen will so the bigger the fish, the more oxygen it takes up. And when you're in those droughts, the fish need oxygen, oxygen's low. So what you will see the recently spawned fish, the fry, about this big. Most of those will survive, and then you'll have, I mean, say like a 10 mile by 10 mile lake, you'll have a bunch of fry survive, and you might only have 5 to 10 mature fish live.
And that's because lack of oxygen.
Yep, we
Wow.
get big algae blooms, just kills the oxygen in the lakes and shallow waters.
Okay,
So,
so shallow waters, large amounts of algae, those are all things that will cause it to be a not so great and maybe not so big a fish fishery.
yep.
Okay.
The plus side of that is you'll get those 5 to 10 mature fish somewhere in that area, and all those fry. And what you will see as those fry grow back, you'll see a bunch of 2 to 3 pound fish. But then you'll get that small group that survived, and that's when you'll see that group of 6 to 8 pound bass, and that's what people want to target. And that's because when the small fish are growing, those big fish have basically unlimited forage,
Right.
small competition because there's not really under any other fish in there to eat. So that's one of the big things we see. Other things you can find, we get some hard winters. So about November, you'll see water turnover. That's where the warmer water up top shifts to the bottom and you get cold water on top. Sometimes you'll get pneumonia spikes.
Oh,
Say you're in a lake that has a bunch of waterfowl on it and it's not that big of a lake and they're in there, they're pooping all the time, making a mess. Or another situation would be a big algae bloom just died off and sunk to the bottom. When those flip, some of that bad stuff can come up through the water system and that'll just kill the fish off. And that's when you see winter kills. That's usually how winter kills happen.
okay. And how does ice and snow affect like the amount of oxygen? Is there any correlation between the oxygen when it ices over or there's snowpack on it? What does that look like?
So that depends on your water depth. If if it's a really shallow lake and it freezes and there's only a foot to 2 feet of water underneath that ice, odds are oxygen's going to get depleted and you're going to see some fish die. Um, some people combat that in their private ponds with aerators, keep an open spot in the water so they get that oxygen constantly flowing in. It's hard to combat hard winters. Public lakes, we most of them are man-made out here, so they dug them deep enough to prepare for these situations to combat that. And snowpack's key because that's what fills up our lakes. If you go, I think it's the Idaho Power website. They got a map that'll show you how full lakes are each spring. And as that snow melts, you'll see that percentage come up. And we're looking for typically above 70% lake fill to keep a good year without drought.
Yeah.
So definitely key to having a good system is having constant water flow, keep it out of that drought system. As far as looking for good places to fish, personally, outside of my degree and stuff, when I'm looking for places to fish, a good resource is to contact your local fishing agency, Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife. Talk to them. They know a lot of stuff. They know what they're managing, what they're stocking. Um, we were big private pond fishermen when we were in high school. We were pond hopping, going subdivisions. It's hard to tell in those. What I look for is clean water quality, um, vegetation, not a ton, and lots of places around here will add blue water dye to combat the algae. Sometimes
Mhm.
that's good, sometimes that's bad because some of those lakes, they'll just put a sand bed and then they'll have their kind of forest algae in there. And when they kill all that out, it just turns sand. There's no habitat, no cover. So you'll typically see smaller fish populations in there. Um, Another thing you might see in those kind of situations are super high stunted growth. So you'll see a bunch of small fish in there. So basically, just look for good habitat. Big fish like good habitat.
Perfect. And what would you say about like cover and things in the water? Is that something that you would say kind of affects it as well? Like if there's one that has docks versus doesn't have docks, or has like a lot of like trees and things in the water, maybe versus like a man-made lake down the road that doesn't, that might be just a small fishing pond. Like what are some things that kind of affect a man-made lake versus something that has a little bit more, if that makes sense, like curvature and like things like that to it?
Yeah. So my grandpa had a pond, and I've been trying to build it into the best habitat for the fish in that pond. And basically, the perfect pond would be you'd have a deep end, you'd have a shallow spawning end, and then you'd have the happy medium, some medium water. Um, the more habitat, the better. I threw some trees in there to get underwater. I put together some rafts to float out there. It helps with keeping predators like birds away.
Mhm.
It helps with shade, kind of keeping the water temps a little lower so they don't overheat. And it just happy fish, happy fishery. You'll see it's awesome to see a fishery turn into the perfect cycle.
Absolutely. And let's talk a little bit about food for the fish as well. So, and I guess this is probably going to go a little bit into like the prey based of things as well. What are some types of either fish or other types of food that you'd want to see in a fishery? And what are some things to look for that maybe you wouldn't want to see? Like you're mentioning large birds, things like that. So let's go first. What things do you want to see? Is it a lot of fry? Is it shad? Is it what are those type of things? And then what are some things that might be more negative?
So in Idaho, we don't have very many shad or creek chubs or shiners. We have one native shiner. It's the red-sided shiner. They only get about that big, really small fish. So typically management plans to add forage into lakes would be panfish. Our main panfish out here is bluegill. We get some red-eared sunfish. We get some green-eared. Um, we got crappie and perch. Perch is a really good forage out here. Perch and bluegill. Typically, you want to stay away from crappie because they mass produce, and if you got too many crappie in there, they'll start feeding on the same feed that those bass are feeding on because they got a
Yes.
little bigger mouth and they kind of pan up more, so it's harder for those bass to swallow them once they're adults. So you got to watch out for that. One of the better species for forage out here would be the yellow perch. They kind of stay slim. Um, Smallmouth like eating them, largemouth like eating them. You get a good school of those in there. Another fantastic forage fish. You'll see this up in our door shack fishery. It's known for its trophy smallmouth. Is the kokanee, which is a landlocked salmon that is put into these fisheries. not to my knowledge, is there any naturally producing kokanee systems. We add them all in, and then they produce themselves. And then occasionally we'll add them back in if we're seeing low shortage or anything. And so we'll see cycles between the smallmouth and kokanee. When the kokanee hit a bottom, those bass hit a top growth, and those kokanee are down here, and then they'll even out. And then sometimes those smallmouth will go low, kokanee will grow big, and that's where the bass can't eat as many kokanee.
Yeah.
They grow big, those die off, and then it shift back. You get small size kokanee, and those bass will start eating those small fish again, and then it's just up and down, up and down. It's a cool system to watch. There's another factor into that system up there. It's a shrimp. That's what the kokanee feed on. So kokanee eat the shrimp, those bass eat the kokanee, and they just fluctuate constantly. I think they're on like a 7 year cycle where they'll
Yeah.
just go up and down and up and down.
Very cool. And what do you see? What are some things that bass like to eat? Like, what are some things that you see bass snacking on regularly or that they tend to eat? And with that answer as well, do you see a difference on what they're eating that makes them maybe grow bigger, makes them stronger, makes them more of a survivor versus maybe lakes that have less of the things that help with that?
So typically, we'll see a lot of forage on crayfish out here. Um, we got a invasive species in some of our water systems. It's a loach. It's like an eel-like small aquarium fish. They're in some of our rivers. Smallmouth like those. They just slurp them up real easy. They're slippery, hardly any bones. Um, like I was saying, the crappie are tough on some of those fish. They'll get stuck in their throats and they'll end up dying because they can't regurgitate it with their spines in their throats, and it's very unfortunate for that.
Yeah.
Um, when the bluegill or the perch, when they're kind of in their small stage, kind of in their cycle where they're down, they're reproducing a bunch, and they're small. That's when we see those bass do good numbers because they'll hit those schools and just feed up like 6, 7 fish in the morning, and then if they still need food, they'll come back and hit that school at night again. So they're looking for those smaller fish for sure. I think, I mean, we see a lot of 3 pound bass and under, and those fish are targeting those. Some will go for that 6 inch fish, but
Mhm.
typically they really like those 4 inches and under. And then we get those more trophy sized bass, and we've seen bass take up to like, I mean, those 6 pound bass, they'll try to eat a 2 pound bass, and they're very aggressive. They got a bigger metabolism to feed. So if they can hit one and done, one big fish, that's their best insight, is to try to get as much protein and energy as possible without expediting their energy in the process.
Absolutely. That totally makes sense. So they're going to go after things if they're bigger, a little bit bigger, so they have to go after less in general. And what does that look like? Walk us through like the seasons. So, for example, I know maybe there's a certain season where bass don't eat as much or they're eating more because they're more active. What does that look like each season?
Yeah. So my favorite season of fish is probably spring. We start getting into the good bite around March, and that's when they're pre-spawn. They're they're coming out of the winter. They're stocking up, trying to get their girth, trying to get healthy energy for their spawning stress. They know they're about to use a lot of their energy, so they're preparing for it. That's when you can throw those big baits, those 6 to 8 inch baits, because those are fish. They're looking for a lot of energy, so that's when they go hard after those bigger baits. And that's one of your best times to catch your PB is in Idaho. It's that March to early June, about end of April, June, May. You'll start seeing some spawn action. And I think my favorite time to fish is April because that seems to be the peak. They're just coming out of those 20 to 30 feet. They're going up in the shallows, catch them in that 15 to 20 foot range. And That's when they're feeding on those deep schools of fish, those prey bases, just hammering them. And I love throwing big glide baits, big swim baits. It's awesome. I got my PB largemouth this year. It was
Some congrats.
thank you. I think it was May. I'd have to go back and look, but I was tossing a almost 7-inch swim bait, just a monster swim bait, and I knew I wasn't going to catch the numbers, but I had a chance at a big fish, and it paid off. I think I fished for an hour before I got that fish, and very exciting.
And let me ask you this. Are you one of those people that will continue to fish with the same lure even though you're not catching anything because you know it's going to work? Or are you somebody that's going to switch it up and try a couple different things? Because I know it's a mixed bag, especially with this group. I've heard a lot of people go back and forth. What kind of angler are you?
It depends on my day, how I'm feeling, but most of the time, I'm not looking for 50 fish, 52-pound fish. It's really hard to get those bigger fish here in Idaho. I'd rather catch that 1 to 5 fish that are in that 3 to 6 pound mark. That's what I'm looking. That's what gets me excited.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone has something that gets them excited. People that love to catch 50 fish a day, good for them. I love that. I'm I'm looking for one big fish. That's what gets me excited. And if that's casting a giant swim bait for 4 days before it catches me a fish, that's what keeps me going. Um, that's what's awesome about the fishing community. Everyone's got their own thing. Everyone likes to do their own thing. People like finesse drop shots, Ned rigs, Sneeko rigs. There's those group of people, and people excel at that. And those baits, they catch big fish too. It's kind of get in your own groove, stick to that groove, understand that. I mean, you can catch big bass on any baits, new baits, old baits. It doesn't matter. It's understanding the fish, understanding your lure. That's what's going to get you those big fish, really.
Absolutely. And that brings me into my next question. Where do you recommend people look for information if they do want to learn about a area that they're fishing, body of water they're fishing, the type of fish they're fishing? What are some recommendations, I guess lures as well? What are some recommendations that you have for anyone who's either just starting out or might have a little bit of trouble really kind of finding their groove when it comes to fishing?
So, by no means am I a professional angler. Um, I got a lot to work on still, but I've I've been trying to make myself better. And my biggest thing is go on YouTube and watch those YouTubers. Use kind of target your method you like. There's uh Ben Milliken likes throwing big swim baits. So if you want to learn how to throw big swim baits, watch him. I grew up prime pre Guggen squad. So coming through high school, I was watching John B, Flair, Perrick. I was getting hyped on those videos. They were just pond hopping, doing their thing. There's a bunch of anglers out there that put out good content. Kind of find someone you like. Not every YouTuber is for you.
Yeah.
I get that. Some YouTubers I'm not a fan of, but they know how to catch fish. So I put that aside and try to learn from them. There is a lot of good anglers out there. Even if you don't like them, don't put their techniques away because you don't like them. They very skillful people out there. For methods, I recommend learning from someone else on YouTube, reading articles. Wired to Fish, they put out some good articles. I read a bunch into that for winter fishing because I struggle myself when it comes to winter fishing in Idaho because those fish, they'll depends how deep the water is, but they'll get down 40 feet. And I like movement baits, and that's when you got to slow it down. You got to drag tubes and very finesse stuff. It drives me crazy. So
I love that stuff. That's my favorite. I can't do the fast. I like to just sit there and either shake a minnow or drag a tube. Something slow is what I enjoy too. But I struggle during winter too, even in the areas that I know people are pulling fish out of. It's just really watching what other people are doing and like soaking up as much as you can because everyone's gonna have their what they're good at, and winter is not mine. That's for sure.
yeah, so if you're going fishing at a lake, kind of look into the habitat and then maybe go on YouTube, find someone that fishes a similar looking lake, see how they approach it. If it's a deep lake, maybe they're fishing ledges. Deep lakes, I try to target ledges and stream outlets. Usually, when you're coming into a big lake that's got some steep ledges and there's a bunch of streams or creek inlets, typically at some point when those creeks come out in the system, one of those edges where that creek comes out, you're going to find a flat. And those fish, they'll sit on that flat because as that creek flows out, it's kicking up dust and stuff, invertebrates, forage for those minnows, panfish, and those panfish, minnows, they'll follow that creek system out, and those big bass sit out on those ledges, wait for some of that forage to come by, bluegill chasing the little invertebrate, and they'll just swoop out, grab that fish. Um, there's so much to dive into. Study, study, study. Never stop. You can always learn more. You can never be the best. Just try not to have that mindset. Just keep an open mind. Always try to learn. That's my best opinion about that.
Absolutely. And I feel like fishing can humble people real quick. I know I've seen it and I felt it where you'll have a really good day on the water one day, you get your PB or whatever, and then the next time you go out, you might get skunked. I know for a
Yeah,
fact fishing can humble you, so that's a good point. And just continuing to do that, learning and education and just being a sponge with either other people on the boat that you're with, other people around you, I think it's super important. So those are great tips. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. Don't give up. Go fishing with new people. Just keep learning.
Definitely. All right. So let's talk about genetics. I know one of the things that you and I talked about when we were coming up with some topics to talk about was genetics and that you love talking about it. So let's dive a little bit into what that looks like. So, can a fishery have fish with good genetics but still fail to produce big fish? I know that's kind of a maybe a double-edged question, but is that something that is a possibility? Could there be a few good fish, but they're failing to produce either large numbers or large fish just based off of the fishery itself? What does that look like?
Yeah, tough question to tackle there, but it's true. You can have great genetics and still have it'll be most likely a low number lake with high quality.
Mhm.
Where I caught my PB this year, it looked like that. Amazing genetics, but it's probably only a 2 mile by 2 mile pocket in a big lake system. And what we would see in that pocket is there's probably only 25, 30 bass in that pocket.
Wow.
And that goes for about the whole lake. That lake is really bad. It just hasn't been managed for bass. I mean, it's probably a 20-mile lake, and if I had to guess, there's probably less than 5,000 bass in that whole system, which is it's crazy. But we I was only seeing those big quality bass up in that pocket, and the reason being, I think it was an old gravel pit that was a private pond at one point that the river washed into the main lake, and it had good genetics up there. But that population was low. Um, I don't think their spawning numbers are great because it's a small system outside of the main lake. It's got shallow banks. It's got the river that comes into it is basically prime snow melt off. So you're getting the warmest that water ever gets in that system is probably upper 60s. That water keeps it really cold. Um, and then wintertime, it'll get freezing in there. It'll get I
Wow.
think that pocket freezes up. It'll get 38-degree waters and it'll hold pretty cold in the springtime. So I don't think those fish in that system get hit with that spawning water, that prime temperature that kicks them into spawn for a
Mhm.
long period of time. I think it's a pretty short period. So those fish, they're not spawning a bunch. They already have low numbers. Their forage, they have pretty good forage in there, but they got some other predators in that system. So I think the successful spawns, the fry do get preyed on pretty heavily. That's a factor.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, that's one of the factors that can go into that. It's tough.
That totally makes sense. So you really, for to have a really good lake with a lot of trophy fish, you need to have both a good fishery and good genetics, it sounds like. Either way, if it's bad genetics, maybe a good fishery, is that kind of that can then have those fisheries that might have a lot of fish, but smaller sized fish, right? Is that correct?
So one of our lakes in our area, it's a big lake. It it reminds me of like a Florida lake, kind of like Okeechobee. It's got flooded trees and lily pads all around this lake. It's like a 20-mile lake by 5 miles, and it's a shallower lake. Yeah, deepest part's like 20 foot. You get a bunch of flooded 5 foot. They got good spawning areas. What happened from my understanding, probably like 15 years ago, we had housing booming. There was a bunch of subdivision ponds going in. So our fisheries system, they added a bunch of public ponds to accommodate the public so they weren't getting overpressured. And for Idaho, we don't have a warm water hatchery for bass or panfish. So
Mhm.
the state's not producing those fish. What their tactic is, they go to a lake that's doing pretty good and they take those fish out and put them into other public bodies of water. So what happened was they took a bunch of those big fish, those 6 to 8 pound fish, quite a bit of them, and they put them in those ponds. And then that lake right now is being managed for numbers as well instead of quality, which is great to have. Everyone wants to go out and catch a bunch of fish for the
Yep.
most part. So it's a good system to have. The prime genetics kind of got taken out of there, and we'll have like 4 tournaments out there every year, and big fish weigh in for these most recent years haven't really broke 3 pounds, which
What?
is
Wow.
it's tough. But you can go out there and catch 50, 100 fish a day.
Yep.
But I've never caught a fish in there over 3.5 pounds. And honestly, I don't know if there is a fish bigger than 5 pounds in there, which is crazy to say.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's definitely a balancing game, good genetics and good fishery to be able to have those big trophy sized fish, it sounds like, at least have a good amount of them.
Yeah, that's one of the things I love down in Texas. They have the share lunker program,
Yeah.
which great way to get those good genetics into other bodies of water. Some people they disagree with it because it's taking those big fish out of that body of water that maybe they like to fish, which is totally understandable. But at the same time, they're also keeping those genetics strong and dispersing them into other bodies of water. So maybe in the future, maybe a lake that wasn't producing as many big fish, you can go out there and catch more big fish. You can get some more bodies of water that produce big fish.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes even just knowing that there's a unicorn in there will keep you going back. But if you just continuously know that there's not a big fish in there, it's sometimes disheartening and hard to fish those waters. I know there's a lake near where Brent and I live. It's called Lake Oroville. And we always pull spotted bass out of there. And it's so hard to catch anything over that 3 pound mark. I mean, most of the time they're smaller than that. But we've heard of people catching larger fish. And that's what keeps us going back is we know that there might be some in there and we might be able to catch it. And that's why we go back. But it can be pretty disheartening when all you're pulling out are those smaller fish, maybe more of them, but they're smaller. Of course, a day of fishing is always fun, but we've experienced that up here too, versus going to Clear Lake where you know there's a lot more of those monsters. Yeah, they're picky and they're finicky, but you know they're in there and you kind of know the spots. So I've
Yeah.
100% experienced that. I'm sure a lot of people have on here as well.
The thrill of the chase is great.
Yep.
Kind of going off that, some of these apps where you can catch fish, post it, and
Yep.
I can't think of the name of it right now. Do you happen to know off the
Fish
top of
brain?
your
Is
fish
that one?
brain? That's so I've used that a lot. Just kind of go on there and check bodies of water. Sometimes, a lot of times, people will post different bodies of water, but if you know the lake, you can check the backgrounds and say, "Yeah, that's probably it." Gives you an idea of kind of how big of fish are in there and what you should be looking for. If you should have your mindset on, hey, I might catch my PB out here. That dude just got a 7 pounder. So
Yeah.
that's another good resource tool. Do
Yeah, I
you?
used to use that all the time. I used to love the fish brain. And then the other thing you can do is look at Instagram hashtags of that lake too,
Oh
or
yeah.
tag that lake in a picture. That's where I've noticed I'm terrible, but sometimes I'll go and see like what people are catching. And then I'm like, if they're catching big fish, I'm like, all right, we'll go to that lake versus the other lake because you can kind of see what people are pulling out. Sometimes they'll say what they're using, sometimes they won't, but that's another good place. Both of those are great tools to be able to go and see what people are pulling out of those lakes for sure. And the water quality. Sometimes in the background, you can see if there's a lot of grass at that time or if there's a lot of algae or how the lake levels are just by going and seeing when people tagged those photos too.
Facebook's another tool. There's
Yeah.
Facebook groups for some of them do groups for that body of water that fish in. There's fishing report groups. Those are just great for water temps, water levels. That's what I like those for because bunch of people don't want to say, "Hey, I caught a giant bass out here," but they will tell you what the water temps are like, what the water levels are like, which is nice.
Absolutely. I've found that the fishing community can be one of the biggest hearted communities. I know there's still obviously drama in every community, but the fishing community, from what I found, is pretty dang welcoming and will answer most questions.
There's some good people in it. I love the fishing community.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this for bass genetics, what are some things that go into bass genetics? So, like if someone wanted to study that or look into it, what are some things that play a key role in bass genetics in general?
Key role in bass genetics. So basically, the baseline is you want to find a good lake that already has good genetics. I don't know as much as like genetic modifications. The closest thing to that would be the Lunkers program, where they're taking big bass and they're breeding them with good brood stock to produce those big fish. Or genetics are tricky because um, basically it's a gamble. There's Punnett squares. You lay out your Punnett square system, and you have it'll tell you the percentage of what the odds of these fish, how many are going to be big, how many are going to be small. It gives you an idea. I haven't played with Punnett squares since college, but it'll give you a good idea. It's a really fun thing to look into. Um, the biggest example of Punnett squares is you got a white mouse, you got a brown mouse. You look into dominant traits, and dominant traits have an better odds of showing up, and that'll tell you if these two mice breed and they have four kids. Say the white mouse has the non-dominant trait, so you could get four brown mouse, maybe three brown mice and one white mice. It's a rabbit hole.
That's a
I'm
cool.
yeah, I'm learning tons of genetic information every day. I love looking into waterfowl genetics. They're just learning into genetics in the waterfowl system. A big thing in that right now is how the domestic waterfowl are affecting the wild waterfowl. There's a huge program in Texas going now, but back to the fish. If you're wanting to learn about genetics, um, I'd go to college about it. Um, get get a more biology degree based. We're kind of biology science. You'll dive more into that stuff. You really learn into genetics in your master's program. That's when you'll start doing studies based into genetics, where you'll do 2 years of just genetic studies, and that's when you'll go into labs and you'll use their tools. I had a microbiology class where we're studying microbiology, some of the fungi, and using petri dishes, growing these fungi, these bacterias. We were testing them, we were growing them. It was so much fun. Um, if anyone's interested in fisheries, go to school for it. You
Yeah.
won't regret it. You'll learn so much. Um, you get some genetic insight. It's just a rabbit hole. You just gotta dive into it. It's so much fun.
Absolutely. I do actually have a question, and this is something that I heard. Maybe you can tell me if it's true or not. I heard, and this has to do with birds and waterfowl, that the way that fish can get into other ponds or lakes that might not have fish in them in the first place is that they could get eggs, like the fish eggs, on the birds, and then they'd go from one pond or fishery to another, and they release the eggs. Is that true?
Yeah, so that's if
Crazy.
it's a fertilized egg. Um, I know catfish specifically, they got really sticky eggs. We were scooping one up and it started shooting eggs out, and it stuck on our nets, our boats, our clothes like glue. It was stuck on there. So, mergansers, a big predator for fish. So if they're diving down and they're going along the bottom catching minnows and they bump across the nest, those eggs might stick on their chest and they fly to a new body of water. And once they land on that water system, sometimes those eggs will just fall off. And if they're fertilized, then those fish will hatch. And that's how you get fish in cow ponds, or we'll see fish in horse troughs sometimes.
That's so
It's crazy
interesting.
what eagles, ospreys, they'll even pick up fish, fly, and that fish will squirm, fall out of their grasp into new bodies of water.
Wow, that is so. And I've always wondered that because I've seen there's a very small kind of pondish lake out where I live that's in the middle of nowhere, and there's bass in there. And I was like, people don't travel out here with bass. I know that. There's no way no one's stalking this. And I was curious on how they're not very big, they're pretty small, but how the bass got in there. And I started kind of researching and looking into that. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's so interesting and maybe something not everybody knows. So that's awesome. Thank you. All right. Looks like we're hitting time here. Is there anything that you want to talk about or wrap up or share with the community at all before we wrap up the segment?
Um, like John B says, keep fishing, never stop. There's so much to learn. Uh, keep digging, keep looking. Go onto your computer, pull up, you get bored, pull up articles of maybe some fishing techniques you haven't tried. A lot of people, shore fishermen, they don't use A rigs a bunch. Learn about A rigs, learn about winter fishing. My fishing season dies off in the winter, so I never really learned how to winter fish. And I got a boat, and maybe waterfowl is slow, so I want to go try to do some bass fishing. And I don't have much knowledge on that right now, so I'm in that state where I'm just diving into that information. You're at school, you're on a break, you get bored, watch some fishing YouTube videos. Just dive into those rabbit holes, learn something new. There's always something to learn.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Kyle. And how can people find you and what are you up to now? It looks like I believe you're doing is it guiding hunting trips? Is that currently what you're doing or what are you up to and how can people find you?
So I'm in Kansas right now. We are whitetail guiding. One of our clients actually just shot a big buck. So you can find me on Instagram at Kyle Roth Official. I'll probably be posting that buck here sometime soon. You can follow my stories on this adventure right now. Most of my fishing will kick back up January. I don't do much fishing right now. I'm busy. Once I get off my guiding job in 2 weeks, I'll be back into my off season. So I'll be doing some electrician work. And then come around March, I'll get back into the fishery system. And I'm at the point where I'm shooting for those higher up jobs that have a lot of competition. So I'm looking for those big jobs. And if I don't quite reach those, that's when I'll go back into those technician positions. So you find me on Instagram. I have a YouTube channel. Best way to find that is just my link in my Instagram. That'll be your easiest way. Bunch of links. Share some of your fish photos with me. I love to see it. Hunting photos. I like to see people successful. So just keep at it.
Awesome. Thank you, Kyle. And that's Kyle Roth Official, you guys, if you want to check him out, please do. Thank you so much again, Kyle, for coming on. I have a bunch of people saying good stuff. Thank you for coming on. It was awesome to meet you and to hear all of this stuff. So thank you very much. And hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Kyle. All right, you guys, that was Kyle Roth sharing all of his information with us on fisheries and biology and all of that good stuff. Great conversation. I hope you guys got something out of that. And now we are going to move on to the golden tickets. So if you guys have a golden ticket, please go ahead and type the golden ticket into the bar, into the little comment section. And I'm going to pick 2 golden tickets today, as you guys know. If you are chosen, please send Rick at monsterbass.com your ticket number, your cell phone, PB, name, address, and shirt size. Go ahead and put those codes in there now. Give me a second while you guys are putting them in there. And we will pick some golden ticket winners. Keep on pumping them in there. I'm going to go ahead and pick 2 here. Good job, you guys, popping them in there. All right. All right, you guys. Oh, did I get that one right? Let's see here. Oh, okay. This is hard for me. So many numbers. All right, there we go. All right, you guys. So the winning ticket numbers are 56054. That is 56054. And the second number is 39467. That is going to be 39467. If that is your numbers, you guys, please send an email to rick@monsterbass.com with your ticket number. It'll be a picture, send a picture so he knows, because I know you guys are tricky. Send him the actual photo of your ticket so that way we know it's the right number. Your cell phone, your PB, name, address, and shirt size. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with us tonight. This was so much fun. I hope you guys have a great rest of your night, and we will see you next time. Sorry, Matt. I know I didn't pick your number. You can tell me next week when you come to visit Brent and I. You can tell me all about it. All right, you guys, have a great rest of your night. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.